the supply chain digital transformation, if we consider that those are supply chain digital technologies in going from paper to digital data, happened over a quarter century ago, right? So, right. So, I think that we have to stop thinking that the supply chain digital transformation, is suddenly taking place today. No, it started like a quarter century ago, right?
It's not
When,
before, yeah.
right. When companies started to integrate EDI and ERP, that was a supply chain digital transformation. When companies started to scan a barcode label on a box and know what was in there rather than using pen and paper and opening the box, that began a supply chain digital transformation. So from a perspective standpoint, we need to stop trying to reinvent, right? Blockchain is not starting the supply chain digital transformation. It might be altering, it might be advancing it, but if you're using EDI, you're already digital.
Okay, then companies we talked about, they are digital in a way, but
Yes.
what's the pressures right now that they're feeling? Because you think this divide is growing and that means part of the market just stays, right, with the operations they're comfortable with. That's fine too, right?
Right. So, if we were to consider companies by size, right? So I took a look at the North American Industry Classification System, which the Census Department uses to classify all companies. 88% of companies, based on October 2020 data, are in the United States, are less than $10 million a year in annual revenue, annual sales. So if you're a $10 million a year company, how likely is it that you are going to embrace AI and machine learning and blockchain?
That's a provocative question, and I like that because you implied the answer, but let me contradict you, okay?
Yeah, please.
It may not be a large operation, you're right. It may
Right.
not be huge volume of that data that needs to be analyzed and processed, okay? And of course, finding recommendations based on that data may not be the best thing to do for the company like this. But at the same time, the entry level right now, technology entry point becoming so low and so cheap to get a sense of what technology can offer to companies who are small to medium size. Okay, that this is not an excuse anymore. It used to be 10 years ago, but with cloud services now, you can start very cheap, almost free, and you can find where the technology helps you to serve your customers, because maybe back end is still old way, but front end, if you are not predicting your customers' desires, if you're not delighting on front end, right? If your digital presence is not up to date, you're looking at big problems down the road, don't you think?
I understand that cloud services has brought prices down, but again, if you're a $10 million a year company, right? You're probably running on QuickBooks. Are you really thinking about, do I need AI, machine learning, and blockchain?
I'll give you that, but of course, thinking should not be, do I need AI? Question is, how do I serve better, right? What do I do that I haven't done before from business standpoint, of course.
Right. And so again, I'm not sure that 88% of the companies that are up to $10 million a year in annual sales, right? Unless somebody can come out with a product that solves a business problem for a $10 million a year company. There are 35,000 companies that are $100 million a year and higher in annual sales. So we can think that, and granted, the three companies that I talked about earlier are in that range. So you would like to think that companies that are over $100 million have their act together, but that's not necessarily true, right? Because they're running on legacy systems and I think legacy thought processes that first have to get resolved and replaced before they can even think about, putting in something like AI, machine learning, and blockchain to really help with their internal technologies and processes, and to help with their supply chains. The middle of the road pack of 185,000 companies sits in the 10 million to 99.9 million range.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think on the low end, you've got companies, at least in my experience, that are still struggling with acting like a company.
Mm-hmm.
On the upper end of that range, I think that you have companies that are willing to be at least, users and adopters, not necessarily developers.
That's fine. Absolutely. They have their own business, pain points to address. Absolutely.
Right. So, but if we were to take a look at a pie chart, of these companies, right, and look at the percentages, it's a relatively small percentage of companies that I think would actually be, integrators of
Mm-hmm.
this advanced technology, right? Again, if your foundational data is not good, layering advanced technology on top is actually going to be more disruptive and destructive to your organization.